Hey there, crafty friends, it's Tina from the Scrappin Rabbit blog. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel. In today's video, we're going to be creating a spooky cemetery pop-up card using the new Scrappy Tails release. This first die here is the A7 staircase pop-up die. You get sentiments and all the pieces that you need to make a really cool pop-up card. The second die that I'm going to be featuring is the A7 Witch on the Hill cover plate die. You also get lots of little images to use. And then my favorite here is the spooky Halloween cemetery gate die. So these are the products. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break apart these pieces that come in the die so that we can cut it out. So I'm using my little metal snips, and these are the pieces that you get when you cut them out. I'm going to cut two of the base pieces and I'm going to fold along the score lines. I've never used this die before, and at first I don't really know what I'm doing. It takes me a while to figure it out, but hopefully it'll be clear. Once you fold in all of the score lines, you're going to be gluing the two pieces together. So I'm using my bone folder so that I get some nice smooth folds, and once they all have the fold line, I'm going to grab some liquid glue. Now when I first glued this together, I glued the bottom edges first, and you can see it forms like a little staircase. So I'm using that liquid glue. This is the Barely Art glue, which is one of my favorite glues to use, especially for 3D projects. It dries clear, so you don't have to worry about it if it gets outside of the lines. I'm smoothing it with my bone folder as well. Now I'm adding glue to the top of one side of the pop-up, and I'm folding down the other side right on top, and I'm using my fingers to press down and my bone folder so that I get a nice closed finish there, and then I'm just making sure that it's dried completely. And that is how it folds. It's really a cool die, so I'm excited to get to play with it for the first time in this project. I also cut out all the other pieces that come with it, and I'm not exactly sure how to do it, but I'm folding it over, and there's little fold lines towards each end of those strips. So you fold the strip in half. You glue it together, but don't glue the little tips. Those will fold out, and then they stick into the little slits, and then you'll glue them together, and that provides a little stand to where you can add your die cuts or your stamped images to pop up on top of the staircase. So that is where it'll sit down on the top. So let's go ahead and do another one. I'm going to fold the little tips out, fold the half fold down, and then glue it down, leaving the little ends to make like a little T shape. I will glue the top edges and then push them down so I have a little stand. And so I did that a few times, and that is what I'm going to use to pop up my tombstones. So I'm using some Bristol Smooth cardstock because I'm going to do some ink blending, and I just penciled in a line to where the top of the stair pop-up is, and so I'm blending right above that line. I'm using some fossilized amber for the yellow, some carved pumpkin for the orange, and the picked raspberry for the pink. I'm going to be making a spooky Halloween sky, kind of like a sunset-ish. It's a really neat color blend that I've used before in the past for Halloween cards, and so I'm going to do it to create my background for this card. I pulled out the wilted violet and the villainous potion, as well as the black soot. So I'm using the lightest purple, the darkest purple, and then the black, and I'm just kind of blending away, smoothing it out. And these are the distress oxide inks, so they blend very easily. Once I get the purple down, I'm going to go back and smooth it out with the pink. And then I might even grab the orange again. Yeah, I grabbed the orange again to just kind of smooth out and to add deeper color, which is the fun part about using the inks, is because they will get darker with each layer that you use. So for the black soot, I'm going to go all the way around because I don't want any of that white to show through on my finished card. So again, just smoothing it out with that black soot. I love ink blending. It's very therapeutic to me, and I love the colors that you get in turn. Now I went ahead and die cut the spooky Halloween cemetery gate, and look at all these really cool pieces you get with it. I cut it out twice, once in a thick black cardstock and once in a gray. The gray is going to be in the front, so I'm going to glue those two pieces together using my liquid glue. There are these really skinny little strips, so it takes me a while to get the little dots on there, but it glues together really nicely. I found that this die cut best when I used my precision cutting plate. I have an older Big Shot, and so maybe the pressure isn't as strong. I know my platinum cuts a lot better, but it's harder for me to get to because it's a bigger die cutting machine. I cut the banners out 3 times in a light gray, a medium gray, and the black, and I used them to fill in the little letters. And then I'm also loving how there's these little brick outlines. The layers for this die are so very cool, and so I did a lighter gray to coordinate, and that's going to outline the bricks in the front of the gate. I used the keep out sentiment. There are other sentiments that you can use. One says cemetery, and I think the other one says beware. I'm using a little piece of black scrap paper just to glue the backs to reinforce that so that it doesn't slip out. And you're not going to see that anyways, so it's fine. So it's almost like adding a little bit of tape to the back. And there is the front of the gate. You get these little lanterns, and I cut it out in black. And I just got some scrap yellow cardstock, and I'm going to just trim around the yellow to make it smaller than the lantern itself. And I'm going to glue those pieces together so the lantern is lit up in the yellow. There's also these tiny dies where you can make the candle inside, the little light inside, a different color. I just used the 2 pieces. Or the 1 piece, I should say, and then, like I said, trimmed out the yellow cardstock in the back to help it glow. And it has a really, really cool effect. I love the little layering pieces. Paper piecing is definitely one of my favorite things to do. So once I have those done, I chose a couple other die cuts. I'm going to use the skull. I cut it out in black, added a little piece of scrap paper at the end so that the black eyes and the little nose cutouts stayed in place. And then I'm topping it off with a really light gray cardstock. It also comes with a little jaw that you can do separately. And so again, I'm just adding the light gray to a layered black piece of scrap paper. The lock, I'm trimming out a black cardstock piece to go in the back, and then those are all of my little pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the lanterns to the front of the brick panels, and then I'm going to save the skull and the lock to do once I have my card in place. I used the Witch on the Hill die, and I cut out the outline. I also cut out an extra piece with the cemetery, but I left the die part hanging off so that I could decide the height for it. And I'm just going to basically form that little hill with the cemetery towards the center of my card. So I'm gluing that down with some liquid glue, and I trimmed off the cemetery from that piece because I'm going to use the headstones for my pop-up. Once I get that glued down, I will glue down the little hill I created using the cemetery, and then that fits right on there. Now this outline is not quite 5 inches, so you do get a little trim around the ends. So I'm trimming down those headstones because I'm going to glue them to the little stands that I created, and they will pop up on my staircase die. So there you go. I'm just gluing it to the front of that little stand. And then I'm going to glue the base of that to the very top of the staircase pop-up. You just want to make sure that you hold it in place and give it a few seconds to dry so that it doesn't fall off. And that's what I did. I just pressed down and I gave it a few seconds. And then the other 2 cemeteries, the headstones, I'm going to trim those down and add them to the stands as well, and glue those to the next step down on the pop-up staircase. So it's going to give a cool effect because you have the headstones in the glowing background, and then the staircase in the center with more headstones popping up for dimension. And I think that that looks so cool. So now I'm going to add that spooky gate to the front of the pop-up. And you just want to make sure that you only glue where the pop-up is going to go. You don't want to over glue it because the staircase kind of goes down. So you can see the glue is going right where it's going to meet the staircase. Once I have that down, I will go ahead and add that skull to the front and the little jaw piece as well. And I think it looks so cool. And then the final piece that I'm going to add to the gate is the lock. So now that I have the staircase decorated, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the front of my card. And how stinking cool is that? I'm going to use my bone folder to just really reinforce that glue so that it glues nice and flat onto that piece. I cut out some of the bats and that hanging spider from that Witch on the Hill cover plate dice set, and I'm going to add those into the background of my card to kind of fill up some of that space. And I love that you get 3 different sized bats because they can be cascading just like the pattern paper and the new stencil that's part of this release. And once I get those glued down, that completes my card. Isn't that just the coolest thing? And it'll stand up so the recipient can put it on a shelf or on their desk. And it just folds flat for an envelope. And this is an A7 size card, 5x7. That completes my project. I really hope that you like this video. Thanks again so much for stopping by my channel. All the links for the products that I used are in the description box below. Thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic day. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye for now.